Excuse me, the microphone's on, so we can't hear.
Just for a check, we have about 10 people online.
There we go, we're good.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. Lori is my business manager for Spokane County Planning. She is back at HQ driving the massive electronics back there. Anyway, what we are talking about is this how do you build a sense of community? How do you make a neighborhood instead of a subdivision? The county hasn't done planning like that really since GMA, the Growth Management Act came into being in the mid 1990s. And so we're trying to add a new way of building for the future that had the quality of life that doesn't really exist now in this kind of patchwork pattern of growth and development. And as I pointed out, you've got that in Otis Orchards. And so, you know, it's wonderful for a planner like me to see that, because that's exactly what we're trying to build in other places that you've built it over generations. So we're not here to talk about Otis Orchards tonight because you're not in an urban growth area. The urban growth area for 2026 to 2046 is not even under consideration yet. The communities, all of the cities in the county are working through what we call a capacity analysis, which is very simply, how much land do they have from the last urban growth area that's still remaining for development? And that becomes the first priority for new growth, is to go into those areas that are already planned for it. That a draft of that will be going to what we call the steering committee of elected officials, which is all of the mayors, essentially some council members, our commissioners, that come together 4 or 5 times a year, and they will look at that, and that will determine what we call the math side of this. The county is expected to grow by 100 to 105,000 persons between now and 2046. The county planning department, along with the steering committee, has to allocate that growth out to various places. And so we have who's got capacity, who doesn't have capacity. That discussion will happen in March with the steering committee. Until that happens and we find out that we do or do not have room in the existing urban growth areas, there's no discussion of how that boundary will change. And one of the things that many of the communities, the city of Spokane, Spokane Valley, and the county have done in the last 5 years is increase the density limits in the lower density areas. So instead of a maximum of 6 units an acre, you can do 8 units an acre in county land, and 10 if you use duplexes. The city was even more aggressive. What that means is if they might have had land for 3,000 homes, now if they're going to double or triple their density, that might be 9,000 homes. And so it makes it easier to absorb land within the boundaries and not push outside of the boundaries. All of that is a very long-winded approach to say Otis Orchards, in our professional opinion, is not in the path of development in a generation. It's just not going to happen. No promises that landowner. I mean, we also respect landowners. If landowners want to develop, you know, the county and others want to help them do that. But there's a two-part edge to that. One is we want to encourage growth because it's good for the economy, it's good for everybody. But we also want to protect the investment of what's already here. And you have to balance those things so you don't have one that overwhelms the other. So all that said, tonight's here to talk about the urban growth areas, typically on the south side of the city of the valley, out toward Liberty Lake. We're not talking about anything north of I-90 tonight or the river. So I hope you can stick around and at least see some of these things, because one of the things we'll be talking about is what a neighborhood looks like. We're going to be showing some models, different kinds of urban design, different kinds of patterns of development. And our consulting team has a really cool tool to help you participate in what you like and what you don't like. And we will use that information as we put this plan together. So this is the first step of a process of talking to our residents of our county. There will be many others, and they will focus on different things. This one's focused on urban development. We're going to be focusing on rural development, large lot development, ag preservation, conservation lands, and the range of things that we're required to look at under the Growth Management Act. You will see a lot more announcements that come from us. And if you, I know we asked you to sign in. If you left us contact information, we'll put you into the notification file so that anything that we start talking about that involves you, you'll get a ping on your email. Or if you left us a phone number, we'll leave some way of calling you. So we'll have those notifications. So I wanted to give that as a starting point because what we're doing is actually very scripted tonight. It's not an open-ended testimony like at a planning commission or something where everybody has their 3 minutes and we go on. Our 2 hours is pretty well scripted, and we're going to be asking you to participate in a couple of creative ways, including, as you saw when you came in, an exercise helping us understand what you value and what you think needs improvement on maps of our basic area. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for that. And by the way, one thing I forgot to tell you is, even though we may not be here for the issue you are most passionate about, we deliberately left out notepads all over the place. If there are questions you have that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now, but involve questions about growth, write them down, please. And if you put a contact on it, we'll get back to you. We'll add that information like we do comments in public testimony. So I don't want you to feel like your time might have been wasted coming here with a different agenda. If you've got a concern about anything, please write it down, give it to one of our staff in the back, or just leave it on the table and we'll pick them up as we wrap up. So, sorry?
I do have a question.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
So you said that Otis Orchard is not part or not in the class of development. But what about those landowners that have applied for a UGA?
If you could hear that, she asked if I said Otis Orchards is not in the path of development, what about the landowners that are petitioning to be in the urban growth area? The urban growth area is not an application process. It is a more or less scientific analysis on where lands should grow that already have infrastructure that are served by water, sewer, schools, fire districts, have good transportation systems. There's an evaluation matrix that we do. In the last couple of years, our office has, I don't know, I'm guessing well over 100 letters of various property owners expressing an interest in being in a future urban growth area. As you get down to the end of that process, everything else being equal, if there's a group of, let's say we need 100 acres and there's 5 parcels in there, and all of them meet the same criteria, the owners that are willing to develop faster will go to the head of the line because they will be in the path of growth. So there is that. And I know outside of the formal Otis Orchards parcels around the southern edge a little bit and the western edge, there are bigger parcels that are poised for development. But what we're seeing is the pressure that is going to come and the capacity that's already here isn't going to be enough to make a big push in the geography of those boundaries. And where it does, it's very likely going to be attached to where infrastructure already exists, rather than having to create new expensive infrastructure to go out and get it. So no guarantees on anything, but from what we see, there are many other places that are likely to be areas for candidates for expansion than north of the river on the east side of county.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
They want my front yard because of stipulations attached to the new road when they redid Harvard. They repaved it, and now they're telling me they have to take my front yard and my 100-year tree and hedges and move the water and demolish the neighborhood that we love because of stipulations. So my question is, how do I get around the stipulations, put the shoulders back in, and retain the neighborhood?
Are you in the unincorporated county? Is it a road, a county road?
It's a county road.
Contact our city engineer.
They're the ones that want to do what I'm telling you.
I know, but they're also the ones that work on the design. So
But they're telling me there's stipulations attached to the money they got from the feds.
that's almost certainly true. And anytime when the public expands road and acquires right of way, it affects people like you. If the county or the city needs 10 feet of right of way, they negotiate that with you to buy the road, buy that land for the road.
For gravel drain. The road can, what the
And that's-
rock we have can drain.
I know that, and unfortunately, that's not what we're here at all to talk about
Right.
tonight. So I want to be respectful that everybody else
Sure.
is here.
I thought I'd ask the question.
Yep. It's an unfortunate thing because that's the only way a government can build a road is to be able to negotiate a piece of land that you may not want to sell. So anyway, couple more and then we'll get started. Yes.
Saying, if I ask a question of Paul Weaver, something of that nature, we need to clear that the county takes federal money, even state money, and there are stipulations and strings attached to it. So along relatively, we have this full of leaves and the sidewalk, and building from. And so part of our concern is we're like stepchildren out there. That they really just ordered the place up just recently. But when you call them up, they say the same thing. There are strings attached to this money.
Yep.
And we're gonna end up with sidewalks on harbors or what reason. And it's over. One of the concerns I would imagine that people have to address, you're looking at roads and I realize you're putting on the side.
For tonight's purpose, yeah, right.
That's part of our concern out there is that the improvements actually aren't improvements to us. Because
Yeah.
we get cited all the time for weeds on our property, but the county's not citing themselves. And if they're not coming out there and they, and they left the ditch.
Understood. Understood.
I'm on off track.
No, I understand, the concern. It's perfectly understandable. One of the things we're doing differently at the county is trying to avoid situations like that in the future. Our departments have never really worked together in the kind of planning that needs to be done under the Growth Management Act. We're now bringing, I meet with my other directors and department heads to say, here's how you touch this plan. And by the way, when you're going for these grants, which have other stipulations, they need to be referenced in a comprehensive plan as to why you're doing this. And it's not just, we got $1 million, let's go find a place to spend it. It needs to be, we're doing it to fix this thing, or we're doing it because of growth. That part of inclusive planning hasn't been done at the county really, at least since the 2001 plan. This effort is trying to make things like that not happen in an isolated incident. Now, in the day-to-day world, anytime the county or any government does a project like that, they hold public hearings. Not everybody sees notices, but they are noticed. And I know they're hard to watch, but we're all obligated to try to reach out to the people that are closest around us. Sometimes it's 400 feet from a project, sometimes it's a quarter mile from a project.
I went to public meeting. I expressed my concern about the reed fest that was
Fair.
happening. And the reed fest is there, and the ditch is so dangerous. I put up some after the fact markers, that people are still driving into the ditch. But it's just, you go to the meeting and sometimes you feel like you're not being heard.
I understand that. And at the risk of reinforcing that, because we do need to move on, what I would ask you to do is use that pad, write it down, leave us a note. I will take that back to our public works guys and ask about it. So I would like to start. We want to be respectful of your time, and we really do have a block of time to do here. Our commissioners, sorry, keep getting stuck in the camera. Our commissioners would like to be here. They are all in Olympia at the legislative session right now. So Mary, our board chair, recorded an intro for us. one last reminder for those of you that are joining us online. If you have thoughts and questions, please put them into the chat. We will memorialize that and we will add that into our knowledge base and reports. We are going to have a chance, I believe, the online folks will be able to participate in the.
Yes.
You'll see some chances to participate directly online as we move into the rest of the presentation. But if you do have comments about what we're going on, we're not taking live testimony, as you may have heard before. So like our folks here that have pads of paper in front of them, please put your comments in the chat and we will address them as best we can. So. You'd think after all these years, technology would be flawless, wouldn't you think?
Quick question, how you're spending, will the slide deck be available online?
Yes. Yeah, it will, everything will be on our website, including a YouTube recording of the event. So you'll be able to listen back and hear that. There we go. Here's. I'm gonna block you. Generally speaking, our agenda for the evening, we're going to take a few minutes to talk and we'll be a little quick about that since I took too much time in the pre-introduction. But to get into, what is the plan? What are we doing? And then the fun part is a two-part round of engagement with you where you have a chance to comment on things you like and don't like and be able to make some real judgments or real recommendations to the planning team. So the comprehensive plan, you can see the kind of bullet points here, the 4 points. It's required, of course, the Growth Management Act, as Commissioner Cooney mentioned, from 1990. The county and many of the cities did their first major GMA plan in 2001. The county's plan has not been substantially updated since then. All of us are 25 years older. The economy has changed significantly in 25 years. Growth patterns have changed. No one would have predicted a pandemic and how that changed how people work and live and travel. And so we're really looking at what we call almost a blank sheet of paper rather than a true update to a 25-year-old plan. It's better. We think we've actually got a generational chance to set a tone for not only 20, but kind of a hint at where are like a 50-year horizon. But you can see some of the other issues here, guiding growth, and the visioning part again is not as traditional as it should be, and that's what we're kind of bringing in today. For what do we want to see out of this? Certainly, it will provide an economic development guide, but we also, that third point is something we alluded to before. We need to grow. Spokane County needs to grow its economy. Everybody wants jobs. We want people to move here for quality of life and enjoy that and protect what we have. And that's that last part of it. It's not just any growth anywhere, anytime. It's how does it fit in? And the strategy is therefore to try to find things that fit the fabric of what we already have. And that means this is a plan that's written to be looked at in Minneapolis or Denver or Phoenix. And like, yeah, this is a great place. I'd like to go check this out. So planning 101, where were we? Review the existing plans. Public involvement, as we said, to shape the goals and policies. The complexity, it's hard to overstate that. And you don't want to. There are 15 separate elements in a Growth Management Act plan, from housing, economic development, transportation, rural uses, and also now climate and resilience, new elements that the legislature's added in the last couple of years. We have to balance all of those and then come up with something that looks like a land use plan. So with that, we're going to turn to briefly a little bit of our climate and resiliency side. What we're doing in these 3 sessions, yesterday and today, is what we call planning for placemaking and resiliency. And it's not just about urban design and places, it's also looking at how are these places going to be able to grow safely in the world of both changing climate, but also the things like fires and things. And Meg is our coordinating consultant on that. She's gonna lead you through a couple of quick slides.
Yeah, hi, everybody.
I,
Like Scott said, my name's Meg and I'm with Cascadia Consulting. And we're gonna be helping Spokane County and the team add your very first climate element to the comp plan. And that's not the primary focus of tonight, but I'm here and we're weaving it in because all the placemaking efforts that we'll be talking about tonight will hopefully also add to the county's resiliency in the face of a changing climate. I'll be referencing a few things and I do have a handout on the back table. I see a couple of you have it. I brought more if there weren't any when you showed up, so you can grab one from the back. And the development of this climate element will happen alongside the rest of the comp plan, so there'll be other opportunities to engage in climate specific commentary outside of tonight. But a couple comments. So yes, the Growth Management Act was amended by the state legislature a few years ago to require all forward planning counties and jurisdictions to add a climate element. Hopefully this will help Spokane County be more resilient. As we develop, it'll be informed by data. We're doing lots of analysis of climate projections using data from the University of Washington, for example, and Gonzaga here, and by community engagement. So I'm here tonight listening to you all for like what issues come up that intersect with the issues of climate change and resiliency. Yeah, resiliency. I have it on here. In simple, the ability to withstand, adapt to, and recover from impacts from climate change. That's what I mean in terms of climate resiliency. So like a flood or a wildfire, the ability to kind of, for a community to withstand that, deal with it, and then later adapt to and recover. So it gets, the specifics of it vary by issue and location. Ultimately, we'll be creating a standalone climate element, but also it will be integrated with all parts of the comp plan. We'll be supported, hopefully. It's a big community. It's the county with lots of diverse perspectives, but we'll do our best to weave diverse perspectives in while advancing the goals. And eventually it will go to the county staff and elected officials to adopt. This image on the right here is from state guidance. So our firm is really following the state guidance from the Department of Commerce, and we'll make sure you're legally following all the rules. If you're interested in this issue, you can go to the state Department of Commerce website, look at climate, and see what all the requirements are. And ultimately, my hope is that it's not just a plan that sits on a shelf or on a web link, but that it provides a roadmap to implementation. I'm going kind of quickly just for time's sake. So you all are probably very aware what the key climate and resiliency related issues you're facing are because you're the ones dealing with them. So I'll just be brief and make the connection to how they relate to tonight. Again, this handout goes a little bit more detail and you'll see more coming. But one big difference is increasing summer temperatures and winter. Today, not a good example of that. We're having it cold today. But you'll see higher temperatures in the summer going forward. You already have been, like the heat dome of 2021. So as you do this placemaking, we're looking to build places that can withstand higher heat. So it's buildings and neighborhoods and trees, things like that. Wildfire and wildfire smoke. Unfortunately, I know you all have experienced wildfires and extended smoke events in recent years. And that is likely to increase in the future. So we're looking to build places that can withstand that can withstand fire and extended smoke events, for example, for air filters in buildings. Precipitation, snowpack and drought. Lots of changing precipitation happening now compared to historical. The biggest ones are we have increasing summer drought and increasing overall Spokane County will receive more precipitation in the future, more concentrated in winter months and coming in the form of rain. So we want communities and places that can handle extreme storm events and that can handle long summer droughts. And the last one is stream temperature and flow and inland flooding. Related to those precipitation changes, we're already monitoring and seeing lots of changes to the Spokane River and other streams and rivers in the area. And so we're seeing higher levels of river flow in the winter and lower in summer, along with higher stream temperatures, which affects fish, but also affects recreation and something to consider as we're planning for the future. So, I'm here again, listening tonight to where climate bubbles up in all the conversations. And then as we develop the climate element, it will be a standalone, but ultimately will inform all the parts. These are the titles of all your comprehensive plan chapters. The one we're most focusing on tonight is the urban land use part of it. But my goal is to make sure that's part of it. So yeah, I'm here if you're particularly interested in climate, come find me, or I'll be sifting through all the notes and what I can. my brief intro, and I'm here to pass it to Ian.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Are you a private entity or are you connected to a government body?
yeah, good question. I work for Cascadia Consulting Group. You can Google us online. It's a private entity, but we are leading many of the climate element updates throughout the state, but we're private.
Are you located?
Seattle is the home base of the office. Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, thank you.
And that's a good segue. My name is Ian. I'm joined here by Bob Benkford. And we are also consultants on the comprehensive plan team with Makers Architecture and Urban Design. And so we are here to talk about placemaking. Hopefully the focus of tonight, and I think but Scott has framed it really well in the context of the much larger and longer comprehensive plan development process. I do think that, and I think that Scott points out really well, when we talk about places, great places, I think like Otis Orchards is one of those. It's something that really instills a lot of love from the community and brings people together. Because this place has meaning, it feels unique, it feels like it fits in with its environment and it fits together. And these are all places, qualities of great places that we like and we would like to see more. As places of general term, there's lots of different ways that could exist, but it's something that unites in general. We think these great places, they have a sense of community, like I think we see here tonight, that are accessible and well connected within each other and to other places in the area, places that are comfortable, make people feel good, and project a positive image to others. Partly for that reason, they attract people to take part in what is going on, and that just may be your neighbors, coming together, or in a different environment, maybe something else. And because people are coming together, it's a social environment that people want to come together and visit again and again. There's some general qualities, but they touch on a lot of different areas of things that we care about. We've got social interaction, fighting isolation, right? The nurturing sense of community, places that are accessible by people of all ages and abilities. Just because you're a senior, just because you don't have a driver's license yet, doesn't mean you are excluded from a great place. There's that sense of comfort and that sense of community actually really promote health. And this is something I think we've learned a lot about the last few years, especially after the pandemic, is isolation is actually toxic for health. And in addition to that, it's a vibrant community place where people are healthy and connect to each other actually has a vibrant economy. And so it's just a win-win-win all the way around. How does this relate to the comprehensive plan? As Scott was saying, very often what you get with development is a disconnected pattern of land uses, quote unquote. Very big term we use to talk about buildings and businesses and homes and many other things. But they can happen in a chaotic, placeless pattern, like we might see on the right there. Or they can fit together and become something that's more than the sum of its parts, like on the left. These get here, it's very easy to get lost in a place like an area like this. Things are not connected. You have to drive everywhere. If you want to do anything, there's fewer connections between things. On the contrary, in a nice place, the different buildings, the homes, the businesses, the parks, the public spaces are fitting together and to make something that is more than some of the parts. It feels like it has meaning, it has identity. You can find your way around because it has a logical structure to it, which I think gets into something really deeply human about we can find our ways around places that have this quality to them. And so it's hard. It's not easy to do this, but this is what it's a goal. It's something that we want to have inform the development of the comprehensive plan, inform the development of zoning regulations as new buildings are being built and new streets are being platted, so that they can have a unique and easily identifiable sense that they foster community. They create different kinds of interactions, and so when different kinds of things are happening, you get new connections are made. you're here for one reason, someone else is here for another reason, you get to meet each other and talk to each other and learn about someone else. The more that happens, the more those interactions happen. It can grow and change over time. It's not just like a once and done. I think a lot of times with development, it's great when it's shiny and new, and then 30 years later, it's not so great. And we want a place that can be continuously for future generations sustained and vibrant and comfortable and nice. And these places, yeah, they're going to add value to the places around it. So it's mutually supportive. These are lofty goals. We have, as we're getting a little bit more closer to the geography of talking about neighborhoods and places on the ground, there's some pieces that we think are some components that we think are helpful to think about in the county context. Kind of going a little bit of a gradient from urban to the very rural. And these are just things that you might recognize, and you can think about these like components in a recipe or pieces in a Lego sculpture or something. Here we've got Main Street, traditional thing. We probably recognize the buildings that touch. Sometimes there's apartments above, nice places to walk. Places for businesses, easily accessible. The customers can access businesses. You've got mixed use nodes. Something you might see, we're thinking about maybe up in Division on the north side of Spokane, where you have good transit access, you have lots of business and amenities, groceries, the essential services. Often there are apartments there as well. You need safe places to get across the street, so you can do more than one thing at a time once you park your car, if that's how you got there. Then looking out, the leafy neighborhood, we think is a really essential component. A place that is comfortable to live. Trees are really, it's hard to get around that, a pretty essential component. Make people happy, provide shade. And sidewalks, safe places to walk. A bridge of streets is helpful because then you can go in more directions, and now you don't always have to go back and forth in the same way you came. Porches are great because they foster social interaction within the neighborhood, so neighbors can get to know each other. Going further out, the crossroads. Maybe you've got two rural roads and they're intersecting, and there might be a church there and a cemetery and a gathering place and a business, or maybe a small public office. Another very important kind of place that can work in the county setting. Going further out, those rural working lands, you've got productive farms, other economically important uses, but you also have the natural landscape, which is playing a bigger role here. You've got waterways, maybe wetlands, you've got steep slopes. And so there's some kind of balance that needs to happen between that working land, economic productivity, and the natural systems, the aquifer also, we should mention. And just getting that balance right is not easy, but it's something that we shoot for. And then finally, you have your industrial centers, and maybe in rural areas, or maybe more in unincorporated, more urbanized areas, but where they're not coming up beautiful buildings, but there's jobs there. It's economically productive. But the goal is to have it be minimally impactful on the environment, not polluting the groundwater, and also in not creating excessive noise and glare if there are nearby residents. Maybe if there are no nearby residents, that's a different story. But we want to be mindful of the impacts of these areas that there are a lot of jobs and economic productivity. Okay, and let's see. This is where, so I'm about to get it over to Bob. We just wanted to zoom way out. It's a big county. There's city of Spokane, big buildings. You've got small towns far out in the farmland. You've got rural communities. You've got mountains and rivers, lakes and wetlands. Crazy geology here. Aquifers on top of other aquifers. We were learning the other night. Scablands and wetlands, and then more than 500,000 people in this county. So it's quite a lot to plan for. We are zooming in tonight. We're not talking about the whole county. The focus of tonight is really in a much smaller area, which Bob's going to talk through, and which is on the southern end of the Spokane Valley.
So the map here shows this is the third of 3 workshops. We had 2 yesterday, and they were out one in the West Plains. We talked to folks out there just south of the airport along I-90 in the urban growth area there. Also last night out at the North Metro, you can see again the urban growth areas there, including some just to the north. Already some urban growth type of development that's outside of the UGA. And then you can see here, number 3 is tonight. And in the yellow, these are these existing urban growth areas. And if you pass the maps that are on the tables in the back, that's pretty much this area. And, you know, each area has its own set of issues and opportunities and all.
The river?
The river's
No.
right here.
Oh, okay.
So you can see Liberty Lake, I-90.
Okay.
Yeah, good point. SR 27 right here. So generally, he and I had a chance to drive and traverse all of these areas just a couple hours ago. And see it all. So there's a SR 27 and I crossroads, but there's a Safeway out there. 30 seconds. Thanks. So there are plenty of challenges, but there's still some opportunities. A lot of these areas are spoken for, there's subdivisions already in many places. But in some cases, they're not in yet, they're under construction. We saw some, there's still some open lands that could be developed. There's, you know, you got some topography out there, and some slopes in critical areas, some wetlands. There's very limited connectivity. And a lot of this is because when these have been developed, you know, all these subdivisions in the past 40 years under different sets of standards, but it's hard to get around from one place to another. The opportunities, again, there's a few larger sites that could be developed and could be developed in a different, more of a placemaking way. Trails are such a huge opportunity. You know, you got this afternoon, we saw the Centennial Trail and how that's kind of integrated with some of the developments, some of the newer developments along the river in Liberty Lake. But if you don't get those things in at the beginning before the development, they're never going to happen, just like parks and a good connected street grid. Integrating with some of the natural features. Some developments do really good job with this. Other ones just want to put up a grid, make some money and get out, and don't really respect the surroundings. But those are certainly opportunities for placemaking. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here with some slides prepared. So this is pretty much similar to the maps that you have in the back. Again, these, you can see some of the subdivisions in the yellow areas here are the urban growth areas. This is all rural. And this is urban, either Spokane Valley or Liberty Lake, generally in the lighter white to the north. As I mentioned, roads and lot lines, once those are platted and done, they're going to be there for our lifetimes. They're just very hard to change. So again, getting that right in the first phase is critical. So zooming in to these different areas, this is, again, this is looking north on SR 27. You got Safeway there. And so you can see the map here. The yellow is low density residential land use designation. And the bit of orange next to it's the only one that's medium density residential in this whole area. Already has an apartment complex we drove through behind Safeway, and then includes some land here. You have a subdivision that's already been platted, and I think that's actually already been developed completely. But you still have some parcels back here that are in the urban growth area and could be developed. And I don't know if anything's been submitted to those areas, but those are areas that we can look at and consider when we're updating policies. And too far here. Let me back up. Here's just another snapshot of one of the other subdivision areas, and we drove this just earlier, but this appears to be another subdivision under construction. But you can kind of see the patterns. Some of these subdivisions have left future connections that might go to the adjacent properties, where a lot of the older ones didn't leave anything. And it's just basically a big wall. And then, we don't enclose the entire urban growth areas here, but I believe this properties within it. Some of these aren't in it, and then you've got some big wetlands, down here. This next map shows, yeah, again, there's flood zones and wetlands, and I think this may be in the urban growth area, it's already developed. So just giving you some context for the area that we're talking about, but really, when it comes down to what are the realistic tools we have as a county to do this. So the first part is just doing what we're doing with some of this visioning, some of these meetings, talking to you all to get ideas for, you know, what you want. Are you interested in placemaking? What does it mean to you? Another thing is, it depends on the property owners. Property owners are gonna ultimately do what they want to do within what's legal under zoning. So it's important to talk to the key ones, especially the bigger ones, to coordinate and to communicate some of these objectives. And let's just let them know what the rules are. Also, doing the comp plan, you've got your vision, you've got goals and policies and the implementation strategies. That's all what we're gonna be updating as far as this process, and those are set that blueprint for the next 20+ years. Beyond that, you've got the land use map and designations, and then that feeds into the future implementing zoning. So how you put those together important. Civic leadership and investment. So as a county, you still need schools. You still need parks and some of those features. So that's important for placemaking. And then, like I said, street connectivity standards, trails. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to incentivize the things you want, maybe prohibit the things that are so bad that you just can't accept. So, and then you want to find the right mix of predictability and flexibility, which is not easy. So, finally, we're going to get into some of these exercises to try to get your preferences in the East Metro areas. And we're going to ask, Ian's going to go through these, but I'll just talk about what our 4 questions are. So we're going to find out, given we're trying to do this placemaking, we're looking at these existing urban growth areas. What are the must-haves and needs that we should be looking at for these areas and how we plan and zone for them? What are some desired attributes, the nice to haves? What are some outcomes to avoid that you just don't want? That's a bad example. Let's not do that again. And then lastly, what should stay the same and what should change? So those will be the questions. We'll take a question here while we set Ian up.
Just a quick question, clarification. You would be in a both part of Spokane County.
We're part of the team. We're not employees of Spokane County. We're consultants. Makers Architecture.
Yeah.
We're based out of Seattle. And we're working with a team of consultants, but we're leading the placemaking part of this.
Thank you.
Question on the placemaking is basically what I'm understanding is a pipe dream in which one for a community. The deep pocket developer actually gets control of the well. That's how I understand what you're saying right now.
No, that's not it at all.
What's going to control that developer to follow the standard?
I have found I've been doing this for more than 30 years now, and all over the country, and helping cities do this kind of thing. Developers, they build what they think they can sell, they build what the market offers them, and they build to the rules that they have to. If the rules are not written very well, you get what you get.
Yeah.
What we're doing here is putting together a more extensive collection of both rules and attributes and even incentives. And it's been my experience that if you give a developer even a fairly extensive set of these are all the things we want to see happen in an area, some developers will walk away. Others will look at that and go, okay, that's clear direction. If I do these things, that means I get my permits fast, right? And yes, you don't have to fight over something that nobody understands. Development and those investors will respond to quality rules and parameters more than you think. It requires a partnership. It requires the government to write those in a way that's not overly regulatory, because then everybody rebels. But also not to give the development world everything it wants, because then the rest of the community is not protected as well. We walk a bit of a tightrope to do that, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, and this
And this is the process we're trying to build that model to show that. We've met with developers, we've met with the home builders, we're starting to talk to those that are doing this kind of thing. And they're not throwing me out of meetings. They're nodding their head a little bit and saying, yeah, let us think about this a little bit. So we're talking to all sides, but I do want to get on it.
Yeah, it's something that we're doing with, whether we're working with a city or county, working with those developers, you want them on your side because especially to even look at the details of what we're proposing. And you know, they're the ones that are getting there and doing the things. We want to make sure that what we put together is workable for them, but balances everything, as Scott had mentioned. One more question.
Yeah, Bobby, and are there any examples of communities that were planned this way in Spokane area that we can use as examples?
Funny you should
Yeah.
ask. We're just about to.
Yeah, we'll actually just, we drove through some a few minutes ago, actually, in Liberty Lake along the river, but we'll get into this exercise and you see some.
Okay, thank you.
Great, so this is only a time for more component, and what we hope is that if you have a smartphone handy in your pocket, you can open up the camera app on there, and point it at the funny looking QR code, there with all those squares, on the screen. There's also on the tables, there's printouts, with the same thing. There's a couple different ways you can also text makers 350 to the number 22333. Folks online can join in as well. I think we had 16 folks online. I'm glad that you all are with us too. And you can open a browser and go to pollev.com/makers350, or just do the QR code thing as well. We also have a small number of printouts of the survey for folks that don't have a smartphone handy and can't access it that way. And so if you need one of those, Hillary can be up with.
What's the presenter name? What's the presenter name?
Ian,
That's interesting. Is anyone else getting the presenter name?
oh, on your,
Prompt?
on your,
Can I see that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Presentation. Makers 350. I think it should be.
any other questions on the technical stuff getting on? One?
Minimum.
Yeah. Those things.
Like I thought it used to be a minimum of 150 feet. From high water.
I'm sorry, you're asking about shoreline protection? It depends a little bit on the, what's called the riparian habitat. Sometimes it's as close as 50 feet, normally it's like 150 feet. Most, generally speaking, that's a pretty good estimate for most projects. There are times it changes, but it's based on the actual biology of what's in the area.
One thing I should say quickly about these questions is the first three are word clouds, so it's best if you do a very short response, just 1 or 2 words, and those will populate on screen, and we'll see the most popular subjects. If you write a whole essay, it won't work as well, and we need to move quickly because we have more things to do. So, oh yeah, great. First one, zip code. So that's hard to do an essay on that. So we do want to continue to learn about you all and where you all live.
We'll just keep that, we're gonna keep clearing it, that's good.
So that's good, if you've submitted it, then you're done for the moment, and then your app, will automatically advance as we move through the survey together. 90027, most popular option, okay. This one, we'll just do it quickly, but if you see the map on your screen and you just want to tap roughly where you think you live, and granted, it's a very small map, and it would be sort of fun to see those little green pins pop up. And remember, we have folks joining from online as well, that maybe from a wider geographic area. Okay, well, that's fun to see. Yeah, okay.
We're skewing your data, sorry.
Great.
That's your chance.
This is, now that we've got you, guys have, it's great that everyone's signed in, that you continue to be involved in the comprehensive plan process, hopefully over the next year and a half. Wow, okay. Great, so what are the must-haves that needs for new development? This was the question was preloaded, I think, when people signed in, so we already had some responses coming in. Green space, I'm seeing parks, trails, housing types. We'll let the machine process that for a second. So these again, what are the must-have, what is essential for new development? When new development comes in, and I'm seeing that trails, green space, transit are some of those things. Great, and we're capturing all these responses, and we'll be reviewing them through the summary of these meetings. Okay, excellent. Next up, what is nice to have? So essential is one thing, but if you're asking, you might as well ask for what we'd like to have as well, or things that could be encouraged through the development regulations.
Like to have my front yard stay the way it is.
It's like that's that. Unique walkable environments, farms, gathering playgrounds, yes?
Spokane Valley plan, because that is fun.
They have it. There's a city of Spokane Valley. We don't has any judgment on that, but the cities, they incorporated, right? And so the county does the areas that are not incorporated, and the cities do the
Separate process.
and we can always learn, from the good examples and the less good examples. Finally, what are the outcomes that are what is important to avoid for new development? What do we not want?
Concrete.
Everything.
Crime, density, high, homeless.
Well, doing that, let me clarify something that Roman brought up. There's sometimes some confusion about this, urban growth area, especially from Spokane County. Because when you see the map, it looks like today, it looks like they're all attached to the city of Spokane Valley. Or attached to the city of Spokane, or attached to Deer Park. They are there because in growth management, those are areas that are supposed to grow and petition for annexation into those communities. Annexation doesn't really happen here in Eastern Washington in Spokane County. So the county itself has to be the government for these urbanized areas. And normally counties handle mostly rural projects. But the way the law is structured, we have to plan for essentially these small towns that are on the edges of other small towns. But to many people, you never see the difference. Where's the boundary between the city of the valley and the UGA law? Nobody knows because they all look the same. So it's confusing, so when somebody asks that question, who did their plan? Offhand, I don't know who's doing their plan this year. All of the cities have to do the same plan for 2026, and they all have to be in conformance to the county plan. It's a trivial point. But it's important to realize that we are in fact managing these small towns, not the cities they look like they're attached to. So and we work in partnership with them. We don't do it in a vacuum. But it's a different level of responsibility. The permitting, the land use standards are all on the county side rather than on the city side. So I hope that helped a little bit.
Well, just quickly, sorry, the last poll question, what should stay as is, what should change? So if you can put both of those together and in separate sentences or just separated by something, then we'll know, because we don't want to accidentally change the thing that's supposed to stay the same. And then it's very small text, so I can read out the answers as they come in. Sorry, cut you off, Scott.
Nope.
Are
Um,
you also asking the questions of the different departments of the county? Because I'm never just not 100% familiar with all these areas, but there's areas where like they're going up a mountain, and going down a mountain, going there's the side of the mountain. And you know, the snow clouds come through periodically, or fire station or something. Are they also discussing this kind of growth and needs for these different departments that they're being counted for also?
We are. And at least in my recollection of our predecessors, that conversation didn't happen very much in the past. Yeah. And it's not that the planning department wants to take over planning for roads or planning for parks, but the comprehensive plan is the legal mechanism that the county and you, as you vote for county commissioners, say, this is how we want our place to look. And then we as the county implement. But the county engineer can't go off in a vacuum and do something like this in theory without having it be in the comprehensive plan and be there for a reason. Sometimes that reason is safety, sometimes that reason is growth. But our goal now is to bring all of those departments under that umbrella.
Just look at some of the responses here that we're getting to the question. I saw single family housing, I saw R5 zones should stay the same, farms, open spaces, parks, no changes, rural areas, things here, access to the river, rural nature, industrial use is too close to residential, as on Barker, is probably something that should change. I'm guessing. Okay, great. We need to move on because we have many more wonderful things. Thank you all. Sorry to cut you off in your middle of writing. But again, much more to do, and I'll hand it over to Bob.
Okay, so visual preference survey is the next part of the exercise, and it might be the last one we get to, because I'm not sure we'll get to the maps, but visual preference is simply, I'm gonna show you images. The first set is gonna be more of development patterns. And then the second set's just gonna be street level pictures of development. And so the idea here is for these urban growth areas, not Otis Orchards, but for the actual urban growth areas, let's evaluate these from 1 to 5. Let's see, so 1 to see. Let's make sure. 1's bad for the county, bad example, don't do it. 5 is love it, let's have more of this kind of pattern when we do develop. So this is just if and when the development happens in the urban growth area. Is it a good example or bad example? And on your phone,
What determines the urban growth area?
we have those pointed out in the apps.
I still don't. What determines it? The people that live there or the government? Who determines an urban growth area?
They were created in 1990 with the Growth Management Act. They were designed to create areas of growth around cities that limited sprawl. And so rather than having no rules about where land could grow, it said you can grow to where you can afford to grow with infrastructure. So they're drawn by, they're drawn in Spokane County, they're drawn in cooperation with all of the cities and towns. But ultimately, the county board makes the decision on what that boundary looks like based on how much land do you need to grow for the next 20 years. That answer your question?
It looks to me, from where I'm sitting, that a developer with enough money can turn an area into growth if he pushes it hard enough.
Well, that actually,
Because of the money factor.
Sure.
We're gonna do this and this and this and this, and that'll make it, that'll determine it.
the simple answer is that can't happen to any degree, because if we, the county planning agency, were to put that piece of land out there and couldn't justify it under the formulas and the science that we're doing, organizations that watch this kind of growth will take us to what's called the hearings board, and they will say, you did this wrong. The hearings board will say, yes, you're right, and the county won't be able to let that project go forward and be found to be invalid or illegal. So there are legal steps on this that prevent exactly that from happening. Does it happen in small areas within the urban growth area? That's kind of a different story, because that's more of a, how much is your land worth? How much am I willing to pay
Right,
for it?
right.
And do that. But to expand that boundary has to go through this other process. It can't be a deep pockets developer saying, I've got 500 acres here and I'm gonna make a campaign contribution and get it in. Can't work that way.
Okay, but how about rezoning?
See,
Who determines the rezoning?
it happens at the same time. The zoning happens as the comprehensive plan and these urban growth areas are produced. They're locked together
What are you guys actually revisiting that?
right now.
We're in the process of it right now.
Right now.
My understanding is that every 20 years. Or is it
Every
10?
10, the plans have to be updated with a periodic update every 10 years.
Okay.
And that 10-year plan is a 20-year horizon.
So when is this ruling in effect about? You know, it goes to the county commissioner and they approve the urban growth.
In this case,
How long has it been in effect?
what stays it stays into effect. You can do an annual amendment, but only if you've got a reason to do it. If some unexpected burst of growth happens, if you have to accommodate. Otherwise, you only can do these at your 10-year increments. And this year, we're starting, well, we've been working on this kind of behind the scenes since 21. The comprehensive plan and all of these recommendations will go to the county board mid-2026, and somewhere between June and December, those final discussions will take place, and then this will be adopted before the end of 26.
That's the county commissioners or the planning?
The Board of County Commissioners for Spokane County.
Okay, it was a-
The county board is ultimately responsible for the decision. In between, the steering committee of all the electeds makes recommendations based on all of those communities. We, the county planning staff, administers the steering committee, and then we take it forward to the county board.
So the polling here will just continue on with the same poll you had on your phone, so. So the first one is what we're calling a large lot cul-de-sac subdivision. I'm just gonna click on the bigger version here, so you can see just pretty typical subdivision with some cul-de-sacs. The yellow illustrates the roads, while the white illustrates the edge. Up on the top, there's no connections to that area, but there's a couple connections on the edge. Otherwise, that's the image. And 1 through 5, 5 being best. I don't think there's a park. There's no, at least in the subdivision, there's no park.
So how big are those lots and those roads and the cul-de-sac?
The lots are probably 12,000 square feet, I'm guessing.
Maybe quarter acre.
It could be small. Is it small? You take into account the snow plowing and speed up route.
Fire.
I'm sure they are. We're just evaluating what the form, whether you like the form or not. So that's kind of all we're doing right here, but we'll have to consider those things. So, and then I'll get to see the results. So, most folks said neutral right down the middle. 27% said bad, but we had a few fives would love to see, but all of them that I can understand that. So moving along here, this next one's called trail oriented development. You can see look at the whole thing here. You can see kind of a grid of streets, but there's a creek corridor and a little pond and a park with some trails integrated. Also, some other things I'll point out here is some of these have alleys with accessory dwelling units. Some of these houses are duplexes, but most are single family. I guess there's some townhomes down here, so there's a little bit of a mix, but that's what this example shows in a growing community. Okay, so again, we got votes 1 through 5, but the most popular is giving it a 4, a pretty good score. This next one we call streetcar suburb. It's actually in Spokane. And so you can see here, we got residential neighborhood next to a more of a streetcar route with a sort of a main street and some businesses and shops in the red. The yellow illustrates the street grid, where it's got fairly small blocks. Some of them have alleys, got a park. So this is tough to rate, especially in hills in the UGA, but just trying to get people's takes on these patterns. It's a lot harder to replicate in the county area. Okay. More bad for the county, but still some scores all over the place. Okay, but keep going. Now this one we call separated densities. And you can see here, we've got some garden apartment complexes in the lighter orange, in a bigger complex over here. We've got some duplex subdivisions, some single family. This is zoned actually commercial where the question mark is, but also notice the grid and the kind of the walled off exteriors of each of the developments. So again, is this a good or bad example when we're looking at growth? Mostly bad. I mean, there's some good things in there, but it's tough to get around if you know, my 5-year-old will want to maybe go to a park in some places. You're gonna have to walk a long way in that sense to get to where you want to go. Okay, integrated housing and open space. So again, kind of a curvilinear grid of streets with some trails, alleys, and quite a few little parks. The numbers here with circles are the number of units in those buildings. So this mixes single family, triplexes, townhomes. Just kind of a mix there. You can see, but you can see the streetscapes and parks. So I'm saying integrated. Okay, more bad, a lot of neutrals. Couple, 1 or 2 5s. And that the next one we call master plan community. You can see a residential subdivision radiating from a circle park with a road down to the middle with a little neighborhood center area and some shops. And single family largely out here, but some multifamily close to the shops. So again, this is a big piece of property, but is a good example or a bad example for Spokane. Oh, sorry, just illustrating some of the uses. Bear with me. There we go. Oh, went too fast. Yeah, let's see the scores. Okay, so all over the map on the scores there, but big more 4s than anything. But interesting. Okay, this next one, mixed growth along the freeway. This is kind of more actually like the West Plains area along I-90. Where you can see the freeway there, but it's got some mixed light industrial, retail, storage, and a subdivision with a street grid, larger arterial street grid. They were really less relevant, completely less relevant with at least these urban growth areas here, but they're still in the mix that we've been looking at in different workshops. A lot of neutrals and a lot of bads, understandable. And keep going. And again, this is more of a commercial area type of thing, so we call it commercial pad development. And I think I can guess where the scores are gonna go in this. But along the freeway, again, this was kind of more relevant for the north and the west plains context. 45-50% bad, understandable. A couple more of these development pattern images. Integrated mixed use. This is an interesting place, along a freeway with a curvilinear, grid of streets with, mix of offices in the blue, multifamily apartments in the orange and some retail. But also there's some open spaces and some trails mixed in there, and a lot of streetscape elements. Yeah, mostly ones and fours. It depends on where we're planning for this one. Okay, we're almost done with this part of the visual preference. And this one is, doesn't have a name, but what it shows is a little neighborhood main street with some storefronts on 2 blocks with some civic uses behind it, and a school, and I think this might be a retail building, and some neighborhood housing behind it. But just 2 short blocks of a little neighborhood main street is the core of it. Parking in the back. There we go. Shows illustrate the uses. Parking in the black. Okay, more 48% on 4s. Okay. Few bad examples. This last one, this is more of a rural place, more of a kind of a rural center example. This next one. So this is a kind of a common green with a bunch of commercial businesses. There's no residential in this example. So these are all businesses. In fact, some of these have 3 to 4 businesses in each building, but they developed this with the central green and the parking around the outside, and it's kind of in a central rural spot where people pass by on their arterials or on the rural highways. There's from the main road, there's plenty of spots. Okay, so mostly good. Few bads. Okay, so now we're just gonna get into images, the street level images. So this one we've got just garden apartments, 3-story. You know, you see a lot of this around. It's happening quite a bit in the county, but
Like Post Falls.
I'm gonna go through these pretty quick. It's a little easier. Okay, so 44% bad. Normally, when we have more time, we'd like to talk about what we like and don't like about these, but we're gonna just try to rapid fire this through. Okay. Just a scene in a growing western town. I'll just let the picture keep talking. This is what happens when you got, you know, phased development and the subdivision on one side of a road, and it hasn't happened on the other side. Okay, 41% bad. A lot of neutrals. Okay. Little more urban. We've got townhomes, kind of live work units. So a lot of these, at least with these types, it looks like the ground floor could be, you could just live there, or you could use your ground floor as a shop and have customers come in and you live upstairs. Parking is in the back. Okay, a lot of bad, but some couple fives too. Our next one is row houses or modern townhouses. 2-story, parking's in the back, landscape setback. Yep, more modern design. A lot of neutrals, a lot of bads, a few fives. And now we got narrow lot, detached single family. Front entries on the side. So, but some of the results we get are, should be useful for us to figure out what are your tolerances? What do you want? What can you tolerate? What is unacceptable? So these are the types of things we're trying to get.
If we didn't know better, we'd think all of you lived on 5-acre lots. So
Well, take that into account too.
Skewing your.
And while we're doing it, so just again, appreciate all of you that stayed.
Oh.
We know this is not your development pattern preference, but in our urban growth areas, we're really pleased that you're weighing in on this, and it'll help us make decisions.
One last question. You said that Otis Orchard is not in a 25-year plan. What's the-
I'll clarify, there are no guarantees, but what we see for growth in population and growth in housing units does not look like it is going to have a major impact on expanding the acreage of an urban growth area. It will have some shaping on the edges, we think, but Otis Orchard is not served by sewer. It does not have urban roads. It is not a good candidate for urban development. And so it's, while there are no guarantees, 10 of your owners could get together and assemble a 50-acre parcel and decide to sell it. And then we'd have to figure out what to do with it, because it still wouldn't be an urban growth area. So I think it's safe to say Otis Orchard isn't going to change at least in the next 20, 25 years.
He said that there was 3 others petition.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Maybe I've been premature. Yeah. No. What premature means, by urban growth area or by GMA law, you're not allowed legally to extend the sewer outside of the UGA boundary. Except the sewer districts are not governed by GMA law. So if they chose to do it, they could have done it. The recourse that the county would have had would be to say, because it's not in an urban growth area, we're not going to issue building permits, even though the sewer is there. But that puts us in a very challenging legal position. So for the sewer district to say no and wait for this plan to go through was what the outcome we were hoping for. What we're saying tonight, though, is there's never a zero chance, but there's not a large chance of development affecting Otis Orchard itself.
In regards to that as well, when I spoke with you, you had mentioned you had written a letter to the sewer district with that concern that as the planning.
Our board chair, Mary Cooney,
And Mary.
issued a letter.
And
Yes.
where can we find that letter? Because I know,
Uh,
we call Mary Cooney's office just to.
that'd be the best place.
Address it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
So- Sometimes the things that the board signs do come to us. We post them on our web as part of the plan. But the more direct approach would be just send an email to Mary's office.
And then this whole presentation, even though they're here consulting, but this presentation will be on your website at the county.
Yeah.
So we all have access to it.
Remember, the consultants work for us.
Yes, right, but but what we're seeing here tonight.
Yes.
Is going to be on. Your website.
Yes. Well, probably not,
With
you know, by the
results?
late news, but by midday tomorrow, we'll be there.
Sorry for skipping ahead, I just letting everybody participate here. I'll go back really quick. And just. Many of you already did your scores of these, but just to clarify some of the images too. This image was a duplex actually in kind of a craftsman type home on a corner. And so I think that's why people liked it, got a little higher score than the other ones. And then these were detached single family as well, but also on small lots, but a little different than that other rainbow colored one. Because it's got kind of stoops and these balconies and a third floor, and they do have backyards in the back. And scores across the board here, mostly 4s.
There's more trees.
Some more money.
Yeah, there's probably a little more money to put into them. Probably a little less money to put into this. It's near a college campus.
You got 32
Understandable scores there. Okay, got a few more. I thought that was the last one. I got a couple more here. Single family cul-de-sac subdivision. Road curves.
3 acres.
All over the place scores, but a lot of bads. Okay. Let's see, oh, a couple commercial oriented ones. Go through these quickly. I think we've all seen this before.
You didn't show our mobile home park.
Bad. 1 to 4 mixed in there, but. Okay, now I think this is the last image, so. This is a commercial building.
And boy. Just like it.
It's actually in Ridgefield, Washington. Down southwest Washington. But I used to live in that point.
They use bike path.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Understandable, good. Fun example. Okay. Let's see. So. We had the map exercise. We only have a half an hour left. The other thing is really the map exercises were trying to learn from the folks who lived in these areas. Since nearly all of you are from Otis Orchards, and because we don't have a lot of time left, what we were talking about is maybe just if anybody is interested in doing these map exercises and either lives in these areas, lives in the urban growth areas, so maybe can stick around and talk with us about it and draw some stuff on maps. But I'm kind of guessing that a lot of you are ready to go home and
And also, if you'd like to learn more about the comprehensive plan process, we've also got Facet here as another firm. They're leading the whole, the overall team. So if you'd like to learn more about that, anyhow, we'll be around, to answer questions. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience and attendance and comments. And anything you think of, like I said, if you wrote something down, leave it, we'll get it. If you think of things later, you can contact us through our web. If nothing else, you can pick up the phone and call me. My number is listed. Thank you very much.
No, yeah, I get it.
In our world, we do. Here we go.